The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council chamber sparkled with 1,000 colors as Dr. Rebecca Moore walked toward the presentation platform. She carried an old leather briefcase that looked strange next to all the floating holographic displays around her. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her face calm. 300 alien beings watched her from their seats. Some had multiple eyes. Others glowed with strange energy. A few didn't even have bodies that Rebecca could understand. But they all shared one thing: they thought humans were foolish. Rebecca stopped at the center of the platform and took a deep breath. "Honored council members," she said, her voice echoing through the massive chamber. "Earth requests permission to build a transdimensional communications relay." The reaction was immediate. Laughter rippled through the crowd. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with thunder and sounds Rebecca had no words for. Council member Thractus, a being made of swirling purple energy, leaned forward from his floating throne high above. "Dr. Moore," his voice boomed like a storm, "your species has only been traveling in space for 300 years. That is nothing. The Viridian Empire tried to build this device 7,000 years ago. They failed. The collective, beings who can share thoughts across entire star systems, worked on this project for 12,000 years. They also failed. The ancient Sethkar, who understood physics before your planet had life on it, could not make it work." He paused. "So tell me, human, why do you think you can succeed where the greatest minds in the galaxy have failed?" Rebecca opened her briefcase. Inside was a simple paper folder. She pulled it out and held it up. The aliens stared. Paper? Physical documents? How primitive. Some of them whispered to each other in languages that made Rebecca's translator struggle. "Because we don't think like you do," Rebecca said simply. Behind her, Commander James Wright stood at attention in his military uniform. He had served with Rebecca for 15 years. When he heard that tone in her voice, he knew she was about to make everyone uncomfortable. He almost smiled but kept his face serious. Rebecca pressed a button and her blueprints appeared in the air as holograms. "The Viridians wanted perfection," she explained. "The collective wanted maximum efficiency. The Sethkar wanted elegant solutions. Every species in this room has tried to bend the laws of physics gracefully." She looked around at all the alien faces watching her. "Humans don't do graceful. We do stubborn." Thractus's purple energy body pulsed brighter, which Rebecca had learned meant he was annoyed. "You think you can succeed through stubbornness? We will succeed through redundancy, improvisation, and something my grandfather called making it work with whatever you have." Rebecca changed the hologram to show her design. "While you searched for the one perfect solution, we designed 17 backup systems. We put old-fashioned analog controls inside the digital systems. We added mechanical overrides that don't need quantum computers to work. If one system fails, another takes over. If that fails, another one starts. And if all the fancy technology breaks, a human can still fix it with basic tools." "Barbaric," whispered Council Member Veridix. Her crystalline body made a sound like breaking glass. "Practical," Rebecca said firmly. "We're not trying to revolutionize your understanding of physics. We're just trying to build something that works and keeps working." The huge chamber became silent. Rebecca could hear her own heartbeat. Finally, High Arbiter Kelthan spoke. He was the oldest being in the council, and his voice sounded like dry leaves rustling. "The council will discuss this request. Dr. Moore and Commander Wright, please wait in the observation gallery." As Rebecca and James walked out of the chamber, James leaned close to her ear. "You know they're going to say yes, right?" "Of course they will," Rebecca whispered back. "They want to watch us fail. They think it will teach us humility. And what if we don't fail?" Rebecca looked out through a window at the stars beyond. "Then they'll learn something much more important." 3 hours later, the answer came. Permission granted. Humans could build their relay in the asteroid belt near Jupiter, far enough from Earth that if something went terribly wrong, it wouldn't destroy their home planet. As Rebecca and James boarded their shuttle to return to Earth, James pulled up a list on his tablet. "We'll need metallurgists, quantum physicists, welders, regular engineers, and probably 100 other specialists. We need the best people humanity has." "We need more than that," Rebecca said, still staring at the stars through the shuttle window. "We need people who don't know when to quit. People who hear the word impossible, and think it means challenge accepted." James grinned. "Then we need lots of humans." The shuttle engines roared to life, pushing them away from the council station toward home. Behind them, in the council chamber, aliens were already making bets on how quickly the human project would fall apart. Most guessed 18 months before the humans gave up and went home in shame. None of them realized they were about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. None of them understood what it meant when humans decided something needed to exist. None of them knew that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their intelligence. It was their refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Construction Site Alpha floated silently in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It looked like a metal skeleton growing in the darkness of space, with bright lights marking where humans worked in the endless night. Dr. Rebecca Moore stood on the command deck of the main station, watching welders outside. Their torches created tiny bright stars against the black void. "Dr. Moore, we have a serious problem," called engineer Thomas Blake from his computer station. His face looked worried as he stared at his screens full of numbers and graphs. Rebecca walked over quickly. "What's wrong?" "The quantum stabilizers are getting too hot. According to the Viridian instruction manual, we need to shut down everything for 6 weeks to let them cool and recalibrate." Rebecca looked at the temperature readings on his screen. "How cold do they need to be?" "-273 degrees. And right now they are at -268 degrees. Rebecca thought for a moment, her eyes focused on nothing as her brain worked on the problem. Then she grabbed her radio communicator. "Miller, do you still have those old industrial coolant pipes from the mining equipment?" Chief Engineer Patricia Miller's voice crackled through the speaker. "You mean the ones held together with metal clamps and prayer?" "Yeah, I've got them in storage." "Why?" "Run them around the stabilizer housing. We'll cool it down the old-fashioned way." Thomas blinked in surprise. "That's not in any of the alien engineering books." "That's because they would never think of it," Rebecca said. "They design everything to work perfectly when conditions are perfect. We design things to work when everything goes wrong." The solution worked. 20 meters of recycled pipes and some basic coolant dropped the temperature by 5 degrees. Problem solved. But 3 months later, real disaster struck. The solar flare came without warning. Even the Council's advanced sensor systems didn't predict it. A wave of deadly radiation and superheated plasma ripped through the construction site like an invisible fire. Half of the quantum array melted into useless metal. Worse, 3 engineers died when their shuttle was caught in the blast. David Chen, Emma Roberts, and Lucas Martinez never had a chance to escape. James Wright stood next to Rebecca at the memorial service. They both stared at 3 photographs now mounted on the monument wall. Each picture showed a smiling face of someone who died trying to do the impossible. "The Council is calling for us to stop the project," James said quietly. "No," Rebecca said. Her voice was soft but firm as steel. "Rebecca, we've lost 6 months of work and 3 good people." Rebecca turned to look at the damaged construction site floating in the distance. "They died building something impossible. We honor their memory by finishing what they started." "How?" "Everything is damaged. We'd have to start over." Rebecca's jaw tightened with determination. "Then we start over. But this time, we stop following their rules completely." She called a meeting with all the remaining crew members. More than 100 humans gathered in the station's main hall, their faces tired and sad. "No more alien specifications," Rebecca announced. "We're going to weld quantum housings the same way we'd weld ship hulls. We'll use manual calibration instead of automated systems. Every single connection gets a backup. And every backup gets another backup." "That's going to look really ugly," Patricia Miller said from the back of the room. "I don't care if it looks like a garbage pile," Rebecca replied. "It just needs to work." News of humanity's determination spread across the galaxy faster than light. Alien news networks showed footage of humans working on the damaged relay. Most aliens laughed. The humans weren't giving up, and even stranger, they were abandoning proven alien methods to use their own crude techniques. On the planet Viridia, a young scientist named Crystal Lees began writing papers defending what humans were doing. "They are not ignoring the laws of physics," she wrote in an academic journal. "They are accepting that perfect is the enemy of good enough." But not everyone was happy about human progress. One night, James Wright's security team found explosive charges hidden in the exotic matter storage area. Someone was trying to sabotage the relay. Who would do this? Rebecca demanded when James showed her the deactivated bombs. "The Purist Coalition," James said, his face grim. "They're a group of alien species who believe the natural order must be maintained. They're scared of what it means if humans succeed at something they couldn't do." Rebecca looked at the bombs, then back at the relay under construction. "Then we'd better succeed. For David, Emma, and Lucas." and to show the galaxy that fear is a terrible reason to stop progress. Patricia Miller overheard the conversation. She grabbed her welding torch and headed toward the airlock. If someone's trying to stop us, that just means we're doing something important. Come on, people. We've got work to do. One by one, the human crew returned to their stations. Outside in the cold vacuum of space, welders created new sparks of light. Inside the station, engineers worked on designs that no alien had ever attempted. The construction continued, crude and inelegant, but moving forward with pure human stubbornness. The relay grew larger each day, a monument to the idea that sometimes refusing to quit is more important than being perfect. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the human construction project on their screens. Some watched with amusement, waiting for the inevitable failure. Others watched with growing fascination, unable to look away from what these strange creatures were attempting. On the crystalline planet Viridia, young scientist Crystallise prepared for another lecture. Her mentor and fellow professors sat in the audience, their crystal bodies reflecting light in patterns that showed their skepticism. She ignored their doubt and started her presentation. "Watch this welding technique carefully," Crystallise said, showing a video of Patricia Miller working outside the construction site. The human engineer floated in space, manually fusing quantum containment rings with a handheld torch. "She works by instinct and feel. Our automated systems would never attempt this because the mathematical probability of success is only 64%. "Exactly," her mentor interrupted, his crystalline form chiming with disapproval. "Those margins are completely unacceptable. This proves humans are reckless." "Yet she has achieved 100% success across 847 welds," Crystallise said firmly. "Because she adjusts her technique in real time based on what she observes. Our perfect machines cannot do that. They follow programs. She follows understanding." The room fell silent. Several younger Viridian scientists began taking notes. Meanwhile, at Construction Site Alpha, Commander James Wright stood in the security control room, studying surveillance footage. His team had just caught their third group of saboteurs. These infiltrators were members of the Purist Coalition, a group of species who believed the old order should never change. James personally interrogated the lead saboteur, a militant from the Calthex species. The alien was restrained in the security cell, its multiple eyes glaring with hatred. "Why?" James demanded. "Why does our success threaten you so much?" The alien's translator device crackled to life. "Because if humans can do what we could not, what does that make us? You are children playing with fire. You have been in space for only 3 centuries. You should not be able to surpass civilizations that are thousands of years old. It goes against the natural order." James felt cold anger settle in his chest. "We're not trying to surpass anyone. We're just trying to build something useful. That's all we've ever wanted." "That is what makes you dangerous," the saboteur hissed. "You do not understand your place." The message was clear to James. There would be more attempts. The Purist Coalition would not stop until the relay was destroyed or the humans were dead. He immediately called a meeting with Rebecca and the senior staff. Rebecca listened to James's report, then called an assembly of the entire crew. 200 humans gathered in the main hall, their faces serious as they listened to their leader. "Security has discovered credible threats against this project and against our families back on Earth," Rebecca said, her voice carrying through the silent room. "Anyone who wants to leave can do so right now. No questions asked. No judgment. I will personally sign your transfer papers. But I need you to know that I'm staying." She waited. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Thomas Blake stood up from his seat. "My daughter asked me yesterday why I'm doing this. She's only 8 years old, and she wanted to know why Daddy works so far from home. I told her it's because someone has to be first. Someone has to prove that impossible things are just things nobody has done yet. It might as well be us." Patricia Miller stood next. "Besides, we're 78% complete. I didn't come millions of miles into space to quit when we're almost finished." One by one, other crew members stood. Engineers, welders, scientists, cooks, medical staff, maintenance workers. Every single person chose to stay. James felt pride swell in his chest as he looked at these ordinary humans who were doing something extraordinary. The crew returned to work with new determination. Above them, the relay grew larger every day. It was ugly compared to alien architecture. It had visible welds, mechanical bolts, and redundant systems that looked clumsy. But it was growing, and it was working. Across the galaxy, the betting pools changed. Aliens were no longer betting on when humans would quit. Now they were betting on whether humans would survive long enough to finish. The odds were not good. On Earth, Rebecca's 10-year-old son watched the construction feeds every night before bed. During their weekly video call, he asked his mother a question. "Mom, are you scared?" Rebecca smiled at her son's face on the screen. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm terrified every single day." "Then why don't you come home?" "Because being scared never stopped humans from doing important things. Your grandmother once told me that bravery isn't about not being afraid. Bravery is being afraid and doing it anyway." "Will it work?" Rebecca looked out the window at the relay, so close to completion. "I honestly don't know. But we're going to find out together." Her son smiled. "I'm proud of you, Mom. I'm proud of you too, for being so brave while I'm away." Across the stars, even the most skeptical aliens began to feel something they hadn't expected. Not hope that humans would succeed, but hope for what success might mean. Hope that maybe the galaxy could still be surprised. Hope that the newest voices might have wisdom the oldest had forgotten. The relay stood at 94% completion, a testament to human determination that the entire galaxy couldn't stop watching. The alarm sirens screamed through construction site Alpha at 3:47 in the morning. Dr. Rebecca Moore jumped out of her bed, her heart racing. She pulled on her uniform while running down the corridor toward the command deck, her boots only half fastened. "Report," she shouted as she burst through the doors. Thomas Blake sat at his station, his face pale as snow. His hands shook as he pointed at the screens. "Cascade failure in the exotic matter containment. The reaction is speeding up. We can't stop it with the automated systems." Rebecca ran to look at his screen. Numbers scrolled past, all of them showing disaster. "What happens if we can't stop it?" Thomas swallowed hard. "It will collapse into a black hole. Jupiter's moons will be pulled in and destroyed within hours. Maybe Jupiter itself." Commander James Wright was already at the emergency communication station, his fingers flying across the controls. "I'm ordering full evacuation. Everyone to the shuttles now." "Wait," Rebecca said. "There's no time to wait. We have maybe 4 hours before this thing becomes unstoppable." Rebecca stared at the readings, her mind working through every possibility. If they evacuated and aborted the mission, every alien who doubted humanity would be proven right. David, Emma, Lucas, and the others would have died for nothing. The galaxy would learn that humans knew when they were beaten. "No," she said quietly. "Rebecca, this isn't about pride." "I said no." She pulled up the core schematics on the main screen. "There's a way to fix this. We can manually stabilize the quantum rings from inside the core. Someone has to go in there and weld them back into alignment." Patricia Miller arrived, still wearing her sleep clothes with a jacket thrown over them. She looked at the numbers and her face went pale. "Rebecca, that core is flooded with radiation. A person would get a lethal dose in 90 seconds. Nobody can survive that long." "Then we don't stay for 90 seconds, Rebecca said. She turned to face her crew as more people arrived. 30-second rotations. We cycle people through quickly. One person goes in, welds one ring, comes out. Medical team treats them. Next person goes in immediately. We keep rotating until it's fixed." "That's insane," Thomas whispered. "The radiation suits can barely protect us for 30 seconds in those conditions." "Then we work fast." Rebecca was already pulling on a radiation suit from the emergency locker. "I'll go first. James, organize the rotation schedule. Patricia, get the welding equipment ready. Thomas, monitor the reaction and tell us which rings to fix first. Anyone who doesn't want to volunteer, leave now. No shame in it." Nobody moved toward the exit. "All right then," Rebecca sealed her helmet with a hiss of air. "Let's save Jupiter." For 16 hours, they fought against physics itself. 40 engineers took turns diving into hell. The core temperature climbed to 8,000 degrees. Radiation levels were so high that the suit's alarms never stopped screaming. Rebecca made 7 runs into the core. Each time, her hands shook as she welded quantum containment rings using techniques that should not work but somehow did. Each time she came out, the medical team gave her injections to fight the radiation poisoning. Michael Foster collapsed after his 3rd rotation. His skin already showed terrible burns. The medics pulled him to the medical bay. "I can go again," he gasped through his pain. "You're done, soldier," James said firmly. Then he put on a radiation suit for his own turn. Elizabeth Warren was a young metallurgist on her first space mission. She was only 24 years old. She made it through 5 rotations, more than anyone expected. On her 6th run, her suit failed. She completed her weld, saving the mission, but the radiation exposure killed her within minutes. By hour 12, 9 people were dead. By hour 14, 12 had died. Thomas Blake took his 8th rotation even though his hands trembled from radiation sickness. His voice came through the radio, weak but determined. Almost there. Just 3 more rings to go. Rebecca watched the monitors, her vision blurring from exhaustion and her own radiation damage. You can do this, Thomas. He stumbled out 90 seconds later, twice the safe limit, but the ring was sealed. Patricia Miller went in for the second-to-last weld. Her hands were steady despite everything. Then James Wright volunteered for the final connection. When James emerged from the core, shaking and barely able to walk, the alarm suddenly stopped. The cascade was contained. The reaction had stabilized. The black hole would not form. 40 engineers had fought for 16 hours. 15 were dead. The rest would carry radiation damage for the rest of their lives. But Jupiter still orbited safely, and the relay stood at 99.8% completion. Rebecca removed her helmet with hands that barely worked anymore. Around her, the surviving crew sat or lay on the floor where they had fallen, too exhausted to celebrate, too damaged to stand. Final assembly in 6 hours, she said, her voice hoarse and broken. Then we turned this thing on. Nobody argued. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, and lost too many friends to stop now. 15 more names would go on the memorial wall. 15 more reasons to finish what they started. In the silence of the command deck, surrounded by exhausted and dying colleagues, Rebecca Moore allowed herself one moment of doubt. Then she pushed it away and stood up. There was still work to do. The Galactic Council assembled in full attendance for the first time in 300 years. Every seat was filled. Beings from 1,000 worlds watched through holographic screens as the moment approached. Billions across known space tuned in to witness what everyone now knew would be either humanity's greatest triumph or its final humiliation. Dr. Rebecca Moore stood on the platform, her body marked with radiation scars that would never fully heal. Her hands were wrapped in bandages. Commander James Wright stood beside her, leaning heavily on a cane he would need for the rest of his life. Behind them stood 28 humans, all that remained of the construction crew. Each one bore the marks of what they had endured. Council member Thractus's voice boomed across the chamber, his purple energy form pulsing with what might have been respect. Dr. Moore, the Council wishes to formally apologize for our dismissive attitude when you first came before us. We were wrong to doubt. No, Rebecca interrupted quietly. The massive chamber fell completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Council members looked at each other in confusion. No one interrupted the Council. No apologies are necessary, Rebecca continued, her scarred voice steady. You were right to doubt us. This project was impossible. Every calculation, every simulation, every historical attempt said it could not be done. She gestured toward the viewport where the relay hung in space, visible to everyone. It was not beautiful. It was covered in rough welds, mechanical bolts, and backup systems that made it look clumsy. But it was complete. We didn't build this to prove you wrong. Rebecca pulled out a physical document from inside her jacket. It was the final activation authorization. 15 names were already signed on it in ink. The signatures of the engineers who had died building the relay. We built this because it needed to exist, Rebecca said. Because David Chen, Emma Roberts, Lucas Martinez, Elizabeth Warren, and 11 others believed it should exist. They gave their lives for this. We built it because sometimes humans don't know when to quit, and that's not always a weakness. She paused and looked around at all the alien faces watching her. Sometimes it's our greatest strength. Rebecca signed the document with her bandaged hand. Her signature was shaky but clear. Activate the relay, she said simply. Thomas Blake, still weak from radiation poisoning, pressed the activation sequence from his control station. His hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. For a long moment, nothing happened. The galaxy held its breath. Then space itself seemed to bend. Reality folded in ways that should not be possible. The relay hummed with power that resonated through dimensions. Across barriers that had stood since the universe was born, a connection opened. It was clean, stable, and impossible. And it worked perfectly. Rebecca stepped back from the podium without saying another word. No speech about human superiority. No lecture about determination. No boasting about proving everyone wrong. Just quiet competence and a job completed. The silence in the council chamber stretched on. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then Thractus rose from his floating throne. His energy form pulsed with colors that meant respect and honor. Council member Veridic stood next, her crystalline body chiming like bells. Then ancient High Arbiter Kelthan rose on shaking limbs. One by one, every single council member stood in respect. Crystal Lise, watching from the Viridian delegation, felt her entire body resonate with an emotion she had never experienced before. It was all, pure and simple. Rebecca and James turned to leave the platform. As they walked away, James whispered, "You're not staying for the ceremony? They're going to give speeches about us." "We have another project starting next month," Rebecca replied quietly. "A relay to the Andromeda Galaxy. The council says that one is really impossible." James laughed, then winced from the pain in his damaged body. "Of course they do. When do we start?" 3 weeks. After the medical team clears us for duty." "And if they don't clear us?" Rebecca smiled, her scarred face showing the first real happiness in months. "Then we go anyway." Behind them, the council chamber erupted in discussion and celebration. Aliens who had doubted now spoke in amazed voices about human engineering. Species that had mocked now asked how they could learn these techniques. The galaxy was changing, and everyone knew it. But the humans were already gone, moving on to the next impossible task. Because that's what humans did. They saw something that needed to exist, and they made it exist, no matter the cost. 6 months later, 17 alien species formally requested human engineering consultants. The Viridian Empire sent Crystal Lise as their first official student of human methods. The collective offered to share their hive mind technology in exchange for learning human improvisation techniques. The transdimensional relay stood in space, not graceful but functional, not elegant but working perfectly. It hummed with power, carrying messages across dimensional barriers that were supposed to be impossible to cross. Across the galaxy, a whisper spread from world to world, from species to species, changing how everyone thought about the universe. They said no one could build it. The humans proved them wrong. But humanity had proven something even more important. They proved that impossible just meant no one had succeeded yet. They proved that sometimes brute force and stubbornness beat elegance and perfection. They proved that the newest, youngest species in the galaxy had lessons to teach the oldest and wisest. And most importantly, they proved that when humans signed their names to something, they meant it. Even if it killed them. Especially if it killed them. The relay continued its work, a monument to 15 dead engineers and 28 scarred survivors. A testament to human stubbornness and the revolutionary idea that gave humanity its power. The idea that nothing is truly impossible. Some things just take longer and cost more than anyone expects. And humans were willing to pay that price. Somewhere on Earth, Rebecca Moore sat at her desk, already drawing blueprints for the Andromeda relay. Her scarred hands held the pencil steady. Her tired eyes focused on the impossible task ahead. She smiled and kept working.